Air dry clay is a fantastic craft medium, and a question I get asked very often is how do I glaze or varnish my air dry clay? So in this video I'm going to share the options with you so that you can decide which is the appropriate varnish for your next air dry clay project. I appreciate how overwhelming it really can be when faced with a vast array of craft products, and this is just a tiny selection. I use DAS air dry clay most of all, and this is a DAS varnish specially for air dry clay. This varnish gives a transparent glossy effect. It's solvent based but does dry within 2 hours, which is a real bonus. The varnish goes on fairly thick, and here I'm painting it over acrylic paints. I like to leave this to dry fully and then give it a second coat just in case I've missed any patches. This varnish gives a high gloss finish and I really love the results. I'll show you some more properties of this later in the video. Here it's made my air dry clay so super shiny. Usefully, a brush comes included in the pack as well. I'll do more of a comparison of the different varnishes at the end, but for now we have DecoArt Ultram Varnish. Now this is great for all those air dry clay projects that we want to keep really natural and not make them shiny. We're giving these pieces a bit of a protective layer but with no gloss. For me, these little rustic houses definitely want this kind of varnish, a bit of protection but no gloss. Here I can use it on the wood as well. This is a water-based varnish and it dries really quickly. Make sure you shake the bottle well before every use. And I love this for all my matte air dry clay projects. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, I've just bought lots of products along the way, and these are purely my opinions that I love to share with you. I really love to use this matte varnish on the wood clay. Take a look if you haven't already. Moving back to a high gloss finish, here I have DecoArt Triple Thick. As the name suggests, this is a very thick varnish. It's water-based and non-toxic, which is what I love. Here I have some fully finished, fully dried air dry clay pieces that I've painted with acrylic paints. Later in the video I will show you how all these varnishes work with bare air dry clay. Just as we expected, this varnish does go on really thickly. I'm using a nice soft acrylic paintbrush and it smooths on really lovely. I'll put links to all these products in the description below the video, and if you have anything to share, any comments, please do comment below. This varnish and the matte varnish are very low odour because they're water based, whereas the DAS being solvent does have much more of a smell to it. Always work in a well ventilated space, and if necessary wear a suitable mask. Next I have an acrylic varnish. This is solvent based and so it does have quite a high odour. I've given this bare air dry clay one coat already and it soaks right in, so I'm going to give it that second coat which will sit on the top and give us that glossy effect. I'll show you how the other varnishes behave on the bare air dry clay just shortly. This is quite a thin varnish and so is really easy to spread onto the clay, and it's lovely to work with and gives really shiny results. Here it is on some acrylic paint. After using this varnish, we do need to use white spirit or similar to clean up the brushes. But with most varnishes, I really love how when you add the varnish to a piece, it really brings the colour out and really makes it shine. So we not only add varnish to protect it, but also to give it that finished look. After just one coat of varnish, you really see how much the colour and the design really comes out in this piece. I personally would just prefer a varnish without those flammable labels on. But again, that's personal preference. I have a bare piece of air dry clay which I've coated with the 4 varnishes that I've just shown you. The acrylic gloss varnish soaks right into the clay and does actually change the colour of the clay like it does here, so it's not very suitable for when you want a pure white air dry clay, but gives a lovely shiny finish to acrylic paint. If you want the white, just paint white acrylic paint first, like I did with this green. DAS and triple thick sit on the top and are lovely and shiny, and the matte really soaks in but is still white. If anything, the DAS varnish is the most pure white out of the 4 of them. I'll give all sections another coat of the varnish so they've had 2 coats of varnish, and then I'm going to do the waterproof test. All the varnishes are fully dry and I'm going to add a little droplet of water to each. We don't necessarily expect any of these to be fully waterproof, but it would be nice if we could wipe them clean with a damp cloth, and so that is the aim. I wonder which ones you think are going to be the best with this little experiment. It's the evening now, so I'm going to see what happens with these by morning. I didn't quite expect that. Most of the water does seem to have disappeared. On the matte varnish it's disappeared completely. On the acrylic gloss there's a little bit of water, and also on the triple thick, just a little bit of water on the top, but only damage was caused on the DAS varnish. This one is clearly designed not to get wet, and it has lifted and bubbled the varnish where the water was. It's still a varnish that I love and will continue to use, but I wouldn't soak it in water. To see if we get any different results, I'm going to repeat that again, but I'm just going to leave it this time for 2 hours and then come back. This time adding in a droplet of water onto some silicone as my control for the experiment, just in case we're getting some evaporation. After 2 hours, the droplet of water on the matte varnish has completely disappeared again, but it's left no damage at all, and the other water droplets are sitting on the surface with no damage either. This air dry clay coaster is covered in resin, and I'll tell you about this shortly. The triple thick has held up really well. It's still lovely and shiny, and the water is sitting on the surface, so I think this could be a real winner for me. The acrylic gloss is also really water resistant, and I'm happy with that, but the colour of the clay that it makes it turn is it goes too dark. So if you really want a white finish, the acrylic gloss, you need to make sure that you add some white acrylic paint first. With the DAS varnish it does leave quite some damage, but I'm not going to worry about that because most often I make trinket dishes and things like that that don't need water resistance. The coaster that I have here with Sarah on is an epoxy resin over the air dry clay, and I do this in another of my videos, and it's a definite way for making coasters and giving them that protective coating. Therefore, using resin is another way to varnish our air dry clay. With all the information so far, maybe you're coming to some conclusion of what varnish you'd like to use on your air dry clay, but so far I think my favourite has to be this triple thick. Another varnish I recommend a lot is a polyurethane varnish. Polyurethane varnish is really strong, durable, and able to make the air dry clay water resistant. I made these angel wings out of air dry clay in another video, and I was able to make them water resistant using polyurethane varnish. But the downsides for me are the odour that it produces, the length of time it takes to dry, and the cleanup process at the end. Many people ask if we can use Mod Podge to seal our air dry clay, and yes, if Mod Podge is what you have, you can use this on your air dry clay. They do a dishwasher Mod Podge, and I put this to the test, and yes, I actually put my little bird dish in the dishwasher in this other video. I do often find with Mod Podge, as you brush it on, it does leave some brush marks, nothing too noticeable, and it doesn't bother me too much, but that's something just to bear in mind. In some other videos you may have also seen me use spray varnish or spray lacquer. Now that I've found a few more brush-on products that I really like, I use this less, but I still do use this. If you need to get into some hard-to-reach areas, then the spray works well. Going back to the brush-on varnishes, a big factor that helps me decide which product I like is the cleanup process when we've finished our project. Being able to use soap and water is a big winner for me, and with all of these three you can use soap and water to wash your brushes. The acrylic gloss needs white spirits to clean the brushes and also has a strong odour, and this is another factor that I like to bear in mind when choosing a varnish. So the two water-based ones, as you can see here, would definitely be my choice for that factor too. All the products that I've shown you in the video are all products that I do use, and there are so many more variations, so I hope this has just given you an insight and a bit of confidence to know which varnish you will pick up for your next project. If water resistance is important to you, I'd always make sure you do this test on a piece of scrap air dry clay before completing your project with this varnish. Hopefully you found that useful. There were lots of options, so hopefully one of them is suitable for your current air dry clay project. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next creative video. Bye for now.